Good morning and welcome to SimWorld Today, June 16th edition. I am Marsh, joined on this Monday morning by Siege in a very active weekend as a prelude to what is expected to be a very chaotic offseason. The season's not even done yet, Siege. First and good morning, and how are you? We've already got some activity which we're going to get into, but like I said, how are we on this Monday morning?
Oh, dude, we're doing great. Like you said, we're having a great little finals experience, and I can't really ask for more. You know what I mean? I'm very very pleased with the finals so far. So
Well, the finals has been great. Let's start there, where Game 4 goes the way of the Thunder. We're headed back tonight for Game 5 in Oklahoma City. Series knotted at 2, and the departure after Game 4 was the Pacers lost this opportunity. The Pacers had a chance, and certainly there was plenty of Scott Foster drama. While I don't think it was a flawlessly called game, I think it was probably one of the worst games. There was plenty of opportunity, I think, in that fourth quarter for the Pacers to win, and a game that I think a lot of people expected the Pacers to win. But this is how the finals go. And if we look at this game, I think we are exactly where we're supposed to be headed into Game 5. In that, the Thunder outplayed the Pacers in Game 1 and lost. Then they outplayed them in Game 2 and won. Pacers outplayed them in Game 3 and won. Outplayed the Thunder in Game 4 and lost. We could nitpick Game 4 all we want, Siege, but this is the payback for Game 1. And this is what happens in competitive finals, and that's what we've had. Going into Game 5, what are your expectations?
oh man, this is a real basic answer, and we can go more in depth, but I expect another great game. To me, like this is what the SWBA has been needing. We talked about it a couple weeks ago that we know for a fact that we're gonna get a new champion, right? And it's kind of been that way, but it's this is what we've needed. Both teams have proven that they can win games in the finals. They've really all been pretty good games for the most part, and we're seeing two teams who genuinely deserve to be there. These two teams have been the best all playoffs from either conference. People could argue some injuries, whatever, but really, it's the best two teams from both conferences. And I just expect another really competitive game. I expect. I think that's what's so hard about this question to me is I'm not sure what exactly to expect, March, except that I know it's going to be a competitive basketball game. I know that both of these teams are going to come out doing what they do, playing their brand of basketball. The only thing I don't know is how the game's going to be called or who's going to go on the final run of the game, because that, as we saw in the last one, was Shea scoring 15 in the fourth, and what was it? He scored 11 of their last 12 or something. Who's going to go on the final run? Who's going to be the team that has, they say basketball is a game of runs. Who's going to get the last run? Because that, to me, seems to be more often than not the deciding factor in this series.
Yes, I mean, I would expect. I think Oklahoma City's winning Game 5. And I have been picking OKC, and it's not because I don't think the Pacers are good. They're really good. I just have been more impressed by the depth of the Thunder throughout the season, and the star power of the Thunder. A lot of the check boxes ever so slightly shade towards Oklahoma City. I think we're going back 3-2, and what I am most interested in seeing, I don't have a prediction one way or another, but I'm most interested in seeing that place Paycom Center is going to be electric. And we saw in Game 3 the Thunder's inability to meet the moment on the road in a very ruckus Gainbridge. We saw the Pacers' inability to meet the moment in Game 2 on the road. And to the contrary, we've seen the Thunder meet the moment in Game 4 in a very chaotic environment, and similarly the Pacers. So what version of that, I guess is my point, are we going to get out of the Pacers? Because I think the Thunder are going to come to play, and they have so many guys there that their optionality of who can come to play is pretty deep. But I'm most interested, what is the response of the Pacers? Because that place is going to get loud. That place is they're going to be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and both organizations will be. How do the Pacers answer that? And specifically, how do the Pacers really, I thought in Game 4, they did a poor job of keeping their stars rolling, right? Close out in that fourth quarter. Halliburton struggled. They couldn't really get the ball in the shots that they wanted to. Can they find a way to do that on the road? And I think if the Pacers can do that, I think they can win this basketball game. I don't know that they will, but that's what I'm looking for is how does Indiana respond in the moment? And can they find a way to get Tyrese Halliburton more comfortable, especially in the more competitive moments, and find a way for him to not burn himself out in a way that I thought the Thunder did a good job of ensuring SGA wasn't burnt out entering that fourth quarter in Game 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's if I'm the Pacers, I don't love that I lost the momentum going back to OKC. I think you're kind of pointing to that point. They got to go there. It's going to be loud after a crazy finish. I'm very interested to see how the Pacers start that game, to be honest.
Yep. And look, momentum has swung dramatically in both directions. Game 1 was the final 10 minutes where it swung to Indiana, and then it swung immediately back to the Oklahoma City Thunder in Game 2. Game 3, it swung to Indiana, and then the Thunder kind of pulled it back at the end of Game 4. This has been, to your point, exactly what the league needed. It's been entertaining. Hopefully we get a little bit more marketing buzz around Tyrese Halliburton and SGA, and not AT&T three-man commercials around SGA, but let this guy star as his own star. All right, speaking of stars, depending on if you believe this one to be there, Desmond Bane on the move to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, 4 unprotected first-round picks, and a first-round swap. That deal going down mid-morning on Sunday. I'll take this wherever you feel your takeaway is. Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic, your thoughts?
Well, I'll start by saying, and I think everyone's thinking it, and a lot of people feel much more strongly about it than others, a bit of an overpay. And
Sure.
Some people will call that an exaggeration, that it was a bit of an overpay. But I'll tell you, as someone who, one, used to be a follower of the Magic when Dwight Howard was there, that was the first SWBA team that I was fully invested in and really followed, hardcore, being from the basketball-less state of Alabama up until recently with the college program. The Magic really, really needed shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing they got in this, but I don't think that's all they got. I think the overpay is making a lot of people overlook how good Desmond Bane has been so far in his career. Desmond Bane can be an all-star caliber player, in my head, no doubt. We've seen him run the point for Memphis quite a few times when Ja wasn't playing. He's a very solid facilitator. He's a very solid defender, and he is a great, great shooter.
Yep.
I think the Magic he fits exactly what the Magic need. Now, the idea of it being an overpay, here's my take on this. As someone who's been watching the Bucks, and I'm not going to say they've spoiled Giannis's time because they did get one. They got one, that's great. But a big part of my complaints about the Bucks organization has been that they wasted a lot of the time with older guys on the roster, never building around him with younger guys, never building a real full stack championship roster like you see from, this year, the Thunder or the Pacers. They're deep, they're young, they built around their stars in Shea and Tyrese Halliburton. I think the Magic are trying to avoid missing their window of maximizing the potential of right now, not just one, but 2 front court stars in Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. To me, yes, it's a lot, but some of those picks are 4 or 5 years down the road. You don't know if they'll be good picks or not. What you do know is right now you've got a really good young core with those 2, Jalen Suggs and now Desmond Bane. And to me, this is worth it if you're the Magic, because you're watching these teams that are younger make the finals, make their runs, and you're saying, we don't want to miss that window with these guys that we have right now. We don't want them to end up leaving because we're not competitive enough. I expect with this trade, if everything meshes like I believe it will, that the Magic are potential Eastern Conference final team next year. I really think that highly of the guys they already have, and I think that highly of Desmond Bane. And I think that it's a really, really good fit. I don't think it's too much of an overpay.
So, I think the Magic equation is very simple. You needed shooting, and you got a guy 20-point per game score, 40% three-point shooter. He fits in perfectly next to Banchero and Wagner. You need, Jalen Suggs was fantastic. They have I think a fantastic defensive backcourt now between Suggs and Bane. The decision to give up 4, to me, I'm not concerned about it because I'm getting in its place a 26-year-old wing. The picks that I'm giving up are the number 16 pick in a draft class. That's number 16 is not going to change this season, upcoming season for the Magic. A 2026 first round pick that includes swap rights with either Phoenix or Washington. I don't believe that. I don't know the familiarities. There's too many picks and swaps going on. I don't believe that's you wouldn't be swapping with Washington, so maybe you're swapping with Phoenix, and then a couple first round picks in the future. The Magic, this makes perfect sense. I don't think this is an overpay because you've got star 1 in Paolo. You need star 2. Franz maybe was that guy. Desmond Bane can be that guy. They now both are that guy on any given night. I would look for them to try to get stretch 5 to further enhance their shooting ability on this team. I love this deal from Orlando. I'm very curious the thought process here from Memphis because you gave up a 26-year-old elite scorer, and you still have a 26-year-old John Morant and a 26-year-old Jaren Jackson Jr. on this roster. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr. on the final year of his deal, I would expect he is now extension eligible. I would expect that to happen. But what this feels like for Memphis is, now we're going to talk about him in a bit, and I don't think they're going after him, but you've now acquired the type of draft capital that allows you to go make another swing, right? It allows you, because you don't need Cole Anthony, a 25-year-old point guard who's going to back up John Morant. He's good. He's a good backup. He'd be maybe one of the best backups in the league. You don't need him. To me, what this screams is, what else can they go out and get? What can they put together? You know, you've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope plus Cole Anthony. That's $34 million. You add 12.5 of Brandon Clark, and you're up into $46 million. $46 million is the range that you need to go after a Giannis. The range that you need to get, and you add in all those picks to put your name in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, to put your name in the, maybe is Boston thinking about moving Jaylen Brown? Well, what about these assets and all these draft picks? And you, Boston, have done a great job with these draft picks. What can you do with them? That's what I'm curious about, because this isn't a rebuilding Memphis team. I think this was a team saying, we need more assets, and these draft picks are what hold value for teams that are getting off of stars and don't want to be good right now. And Desmond Bane is not a number 1. Here's all the draft picks that you can possibly imagine. What do you want to do with them, Team B? That's where I think this is coming from.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That was going to be my next point. You know, there's the KD sweepstakes. I know we're going to talk about that coming up, but whether it's KD or I've heard murmurs. I've got a brother who lives out in Memphis who is, you know, in a circle of quite a bit of Grizzlies fans. You know, this is probably just wishful thinking on their part, but that, you know, this is them trying to gear up to throw their hat in the Giannis talks. If that is going to happen, if there is going to be Giannis talks, Memphis doesn't want to miss the train and not be able to do those talks. I think this is a move that, if those, again, and it's very clear and vague if that's even a reality that's going to set in, that Giannis is going to be open for talks. But if it is, Memphis has now positioned themselves to be able to make a serious offer for a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think you said it best. Desmond Bane can be a number 2, in my opinion, but I think they want to go get a proven guy to put next to Ja and Jaren and kind of take a lot of the load of being the number 1 guy off of them. And I think this does that. I heard even rumors that they might be going after Trae Young to pair with Ja Morant. Now, don't ask me if I think that's a good play, because I think it's a terrible, terrible move to try and go do that. But point is, I agree wholeheartedly. I fully expect for most, if not all of those draft picks to be gone from the Grizzlies by the time the season starts, and for there to be some big name suiting up and lining up next to Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr.
That's what this looks like. $46 million in KCP, Cole Anthony, Brandon Clark, all of which are off the books in 2 years, 13 of which can come off the books if Cole Anthony with a team option, and then a player option for KCP at $21 million next summer, where maybe a team says, hey, KCP, we'll give you two for 2 for 30 if you decline that and you take a little bit of a pay cut wherever that is. You trim $16 million off of it, but you make it over 2 years instead of one, or $6 million off of 1 year. That's because one thing that the Grizzlies have done well is drafting, right? Scottie Pippen Jr. is a fantastic backup point guard. He makes $2 million. G.G. Jackson, an absolute steal of theirs, has been a fantastic wing when healthy, $2 million. Jay Huff, who had a really nice season, $2 million. Zach Edey, who was their starting five, $6 million. There's a lot of guys on this roster that are exactly what you need. You just need another star next to John Morant, and you need John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane, which had been a challenge of his, is to stay healthy. Let's go to that. Kevin Durant on Saturday night, report comes out that his destination, his 4 preferred destinations, which, again, throw this to the wind, especially after what happened on Sunday. I think that the Grizzlies, I add to this list because there's going to be preferred suitors by a player. There's also going to be what the market is. The preferred destinations for Kevin Durant are Miami, San Antonio, Houston. Your thoughts on those 3 spots and Kevin Durant's future here?
Well, I see where Kevin Durant's head's at, because it's no coincidence that all 3 of those spots are places where he won't have to pay state income tax.
Yeah,
so
smart move.
Let's just go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. We know why he wants to go there. Now, I think a lot of people, and me included, if he ends up in San Antonio, that's insane. The velocity and intensity that San Antonio has, so even if they don't go get KD, even if that doesn't happen, which I'm hearing that there was a deal on the table that was very enticing and that it was almost a done deal, but that San Antonio is being a little stingy about Jeremy Sohan, and that's kind of the deal breaker for Phoenix. That's just what I heard through the grapevine, which I get it. Jeremy Sohan's a valuable, versatile young player, but that would be insane. I think the Rockets, there's some value there. I think Miami would just kind of be I don't see that making Miami any close. I don't see it making them closer to a contender. I see that being Miami trying to put butts in seats.
Yeah. I don't know how you do that deal, but
I don't know how they pull that off. I don't know what the assets they put in that deal are. But to me, we've heard about Heat culture for a long time, right? KD doesn't fit Heat culture. I don't see him being a fit there where they're going to be a serious contender or even make a deep playoff run. Probably make the playoffs, but the Rockets, depending on who they would give up in said deal, I think KD, again, it all to me depends on who they're able to keep in a deal. But I think that's the place where he could be the biggest difference maker in terms of turning a team closer to a contender is the Rockets. I think the Spurs are going to be very, very good this year if Wemby stays healthy. Regardless, obviously he would help. But the biggest change in ceiling for me is if he ends up in Houston.
Yeah, so I mean the Rockets, you can do Van Vliet's at 44, but you'd have to pick up the team option on that, and then you can just throw in, Reed Shepherd. I'm just doing simple numbers to get there. That gets you to the 54. You could do Jalen Green plus Dylan Brooks and get to 55, and that's not a bad look if you're Houston. You could do Alperen Şengün. There's a lot of optionality.
Şengün should not be touched, Marsh. Şengün should not be touched.
I'm just giving you dollars.
I'm hanging up the phone.
I agree with you.
Not be touched. You can trade anyone else. Jalen Green, boom, gone. Don't care. Şengün and Thompson, those two are untouchable in my book.
I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm just giving you what the financials are. Maybe it could be Jamari Smith, who I think is just a poor fit with that group. You could do Van Vliet and Jabari Smith and say, hey, go nuts. And then some draft picks. Houston is the one that makes the most sense to me. If I'm Phoenix's standpoint, I'm going to try to get as many draft picks because Phoenix needs to refill the coffers. Because what Phoenix needs to do is they need 2 things. They need to start building a team that can be competitive in the future around Devin Booker. And there's 2 ways to do that. You either trade for a guy, and Houston has the most options to do that. It's why Minnesota, being a team that's often been linked and who seems like they're the number 1 desiree of Kevin Durant's services, doesn't make any sense because what am I getting back that I can use if I'm Phoenix to either make my team better or to improve as an organization via trade down the road? Minnesota's not that team. Miami's not that team. San Antonio can kind of be that team. They held on to a lot of the assets. And you can throw in some nice pieces. Like, I think you kind of have to throw Stephon Castle into that mix because you're probably going to take Dylan Harper, number 2 overall. And when you do that, and now you've got De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, you throw in draft. When you have Victor Wembanyama, Dylan Harper alone, forget about where you are. I don't think that you need to be too concerned about holding on to future draft picks. When you add Kevin Durant and De'Aaron Fox, then you really don't need to worry about holding on to too much of future assets. But it makes sense for it to be Houston. I'm looking at San Antonio's roster sheet right now. You could do Devin Vassell, but he's got a long-term deal. He's 27. He probably is where you have to start because otherwise you start having to put too many pieces together. You could do Harrison Barnes, who's in his last year of his deal coming up, plus Keldon Johnson, and that gets you to $36 million. You still got to find another 18. So you have to include Devin Vassell in that and then future assets. It makes sense for those to be the teams. I think Memphis makes things very interesting now because you can use all those draft picks that you got. You can get to $54 million you can get close to it pretty quickly. I don't know what the rules are for teams in the second apron. If the 125% of salary has to match. I don't know what 75% of 54 is to be able to do the math. Siege, I'm not a math whiz here, and that's the beauty of where sometimes I nerd out on these.
It's around 37. Around 37.
You are math whiz, so here you go. So you could, if you're meant. I mean, I think that if I'm Phoenix, though, the point of this, Kevin Durant is going to say all these teams that he wants to go to. I don't care. If I'm Phoenix, I have to look at this and say, I need to get what's best for me. And what that is I need to get players that can either help me win now or who I can flip to help me win later. I need draft picks to do the same, preferably pieces that I can then turn around and send out. So I kind of want a deal coming back that's like a Fred VanVleet, $44 million, that I can take with 2 or 3 draft picks, and I can start being in the shopping palooza of other big name stars. I mean, why was the Jimmy Butler trade so hard to come up with? Because there was a lot of luxury tax implications. You got to get to $50 million. It's why this Kevin Durant deal is a challenge, because you have to get to $54 million. Well, if you got Fred VanVleet, who's not a bad basketball player, who can be the point guard, which allows Devin Booker to be an off-ball guard like he was, you can either, one, be somewhat competitive with that group, or you can take an expiring $44 million, take draft picks, put that into the market, and see what you can do with it to make a team better fit next to Devin Booker in the long run. It has to get done. Phoenix, though, has to prioritize their organization and not what is potentially coming back, or where Kevin Durant, rather, wants to go.
I couldn't agree. End of the day, you hear this over and over ad nauseum, but it's a business. It's a business, and yes, he's one of the biggest stars who's ever been in the business. But end of the day, if I'm San Antonio or if I'm Phoenix, what am I gonna do? He wants to leave. This team I have right now sucks. Bradley Beal sucks.
Yeah.
Devin Booker, I'm about to give a record-breaking deal to. I'm just, I'm gonna get what I can get for you, Kevin, and that's the bottom line. I do think Houston's got the best assets. I have one other note. If I'm San Antonio, Steven Castle's the deal breaker for me. I'm not letting go of him.
You got to, though. You've got to. You can't have Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, and Victor Wembanyama and start saying, "Oh, I get to hold on to this guy." At some point, we've got to let realism play in.
I hear what you're saying, that it's stingy of them, but that's to me right now, like in that deal. Let's say for discussion's sake that the Houston option kind of falls apart. Miami is not able to offer what you want. San Antonio is your only realistic option to get something. San Antonio has the upper hand because I'm going to be honest, like, yes, KD's a great addition and immediately makes them a top contender if the fit ends up being good, which I think it will be fine. But San Antonio, if Wemby's healthy and Steven Castle is playing at the level he was last year and progresses, and they added Dylan Harper, that team is going to be on the brink of contending right now regardless. So again, and maybe this obviously is up for debate, but to me, I'm not letting go of a guy like Steven Castle. They do have tons of draft capital, San Antonio does, or enough to make the deal with guys like Vassell. And again, Sohan's the name to me that I don't want to let go, but I'm letting go of Sohan before I let go of Steven Castle. I think Steven Castle's got a really big future, and I think he fits well with what San Antonio is doing. So for me, if I'm San Antonio, Steven Castle's not going anywhere.
And I'm not saying you're wrong. Stephon Castle. Let's remember it's not Steven. Steph Curry would hate you for that one too. I just at some point you got to give up an asset, and that's the asset that's available. All right, that is our show. We went long because there was a lot going on. Siege, is always great to talk to you. We'll talk to you again next Monday, where I think we would have an SWBA champion. Game 5 tonight. We'll talk all that tomorrow morning with Rico on SimWorld today on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.